Hi, welcome. We'll give folks just a minute or so to join on our webinar, and then we will get started. Thanks for being with us today.
Kendra, do we turn on and off our own audio and video when we speak?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, welcome and thanks for joining us for today's webinar. I am Kendra King-Bose. I'm a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and the project manager for the Helping Native Babies project. Today, we're going to be focusing on strategies and practical tips for teaching safe infant sleep in American Indian and Alaska Native communities. Before we get started, I just wanted to provide a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is scheduled to last for 90 minutes. The last portion will be question and answer session. You can pose questions throughout the webinar in the chat box so you don't forget them, and then we'll answer at the very end. For now, feel free to use the chat box to say hi, let us know who you are, where you're from, and feel free to communicate with each other throughout. We want this to be interactive, and we want to make sure that you get all of your questions answered and have a chance to meet others that has joined us today. So we've got a lot of information to cover. We're going to dive right in. Donna, if you could switch to the next slide, please. So I am pleased to be here with our Healthy Native Babies project team. We've been working together for a number of years and put together a lot of resources, and we are highlighting and sharing those with you all in this webinar series. I've got with me Lee Henry Tanner from the Portland area, Marie Zephyr from the Great Plains area, Jaredine Simpkins from the Bemidji area, Kristen Hellw from Alaska, and Shira Rutman is coming to us from California, and she is our evaluation consultant. Next slide, please. And next slide. So this is our second webinar in the series of 3 that we have. We had a webinar about a month ago, and we've got one more that we're scheduled to have on April 13th. So we hope that you can join us for that one. We will be posting all of our webinar recordings on our website, and we'll share that link with you at the very end. That way you'll be able to access any that you're not able to attend, or if you'd like to go back and get more information or share with colleagues. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share just a little bit of information to you about the Safe to Sleep campaign. And this was formerly the Back to Sleep campaign. And it was created by the Eunice Kennedy Shriver National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, part of the National Institutes of Health. And it began in 1994 as a way to bring public attention to SIDS and educate caregivers on ways to reduce the risk of SIDS and other sleep-related causes of infant death. Next slide, please. And the Healthy Native Babies project is also funded through the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, or NICHD. And it's really a way for us to provide culturally tailored safe sleep messages for American Indian and Alaska Native audiences. And we'll share a little bit more about some of the work and the resources that we've put together throughout this webinar. Next slide, please. And these are our objectives for today's webinar. So we hope that you will be able to, after this webinar, apply key strategies for addressing safe sleep practices in Native communities, integrate strength-based approaches and cultural teachings into the safe infant sleep education you provide, implement some safe sleep practice activities, be able to tailor education and outreach to Native communities and those who serve them, and apply insights learned during the Healthy Native Babies project to specific community contexts and settings. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn this over to Shira Rutman to talk about data and the expert insights.
Thanks, Kendra. Hi, everyone. Next slide, please. So we want to start by reviewing the definitions of SUID and SIDS with you all. So sudden unexpected infant death, or SUID, is the death of an infant who's younger than 1 year of age and that occurs suddenly and unexpectedly. And this is a broad term which includes both known causes and unknown causes, and most of which are categorized by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as SIDS, accidental strangulation and suffocation in bed, and those that are unknown causes. While SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, remains unexplained after a thorough case investigation. Next slide, please. SUID is one of the top 5 causes of infant death in the United States. And in 2019, about 3,400 infants died of SUID. So it's important for all parents and infant caregivers to be fully informed. Overall, the SIDS rates are declining and have been in the United States. However, racial and ethnic disparities in these rates persist. And this is true regardless of socioeconomic status, maternal age, birth weight, and prenatal care. Specifically, in 2017, the rate of SIDS among American Indian and Alaska Native infants was more than double that of white infants. And with the highest rates coming up in Alaska and the Great Plains regions of the country. And in those areas are almost 270% higher rates of SIDS among Native infants compared to white infants. Next slide, please. So the Healthy Native Babies Project also gathers updated information to understand communities' current challenges and strengths in addressing safe infant sleep. And during July of 2020 and May of 2021, our team conducted key informant interviews with 16 individuals that are serving in a wide range of roles and organizations that are addressing safe infant sleep in Native communities. These individuals were located in 8 Indian Health Service regions, and we captured a broad range of experiences and perspectives in this group. Next slide, please. So while these experts were diverse in their roles and experiences, we actually heard consistent themes across these discussions. And these really highlighted the systemic risk factors for SIDS and experiences in Native communities. These experts talked about how the history of colonization and ongoing oppression and structural racism continue to impact communities' efforts to reduce risk for SIDS. And they also talked about the need for policies that address common persistent challenges such as housing insecurity and healthcare barriers. And for those of you that may have attended the first webinar in February, you heard us share some of these findings and recommendations. And for others, there's going to be a recording, as Kendra mentioned, coming out shortly. So we asked these experts specifically for recommendations, and some of those are listed here. And we're going to go more in depth into some of these themes throughout the webinar today. We're also working on finalizing a summary report with the detailed information from these interviews. So please keep your eyes out for that. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues to discuss strategies for addressing safe sleep practices.
Thank you, Shira. Next slide, please. Hello, everybody. My name is Lee Tanner. I'm a transplanted Mimi-Poo Nez Perce tribal member from Idaho, and I'm coming to you from the traditional homelands of the Suquamish people in Bremerton, Washington. Next slide, please. The importance of a strengths-based approach was also a key theme in our interview with the experts that Shira just talked about. One shared this comment: make sure you're focusing on the strengths of the family and culture and making it more of a partnership than us just telling people what to do. Next slide, please. A strengths-based approach highlights people's existing strengths and capacities, provides an inventory of what people and families already know how to do, outlines what behaviors are already working, capabilities and assets that they already have. A deficit-based approach starts with what's wrong with people. It continually focuses on problems and concerns and focuses on what is broken or what people are doing wrong. Next slide, please. This visual, which compares strengths-based approaches with deficit-based approaches, is adapted from W. McCaskey, The Strengths Approach, as cited in Wayne Hammond and Rob Zimmerman's A Strengths-Based Perspective, a report for resilience initiatives. I think this is a great visual that really compares how important it is to approach with a strengths-based approach, and then compares the deficit-based. Next slide, please. So deficit approach to community safe sleep practices. I think this is another great visual that highlights what those approaches are. It focuses on deficits and labels negative expectations. They prescribe interventions and negative experiences and have low expectations. And this is not the way that we want to approach our communities. I love the visuals of our Healthy Native Babies project. We place the baby at the center of everything. Next slide, please. A strengths-based approach, which is much a better use of our time, really focuses on the strengths and native knowledge about safe sleep and traditional educational practices. With continued development of strengths, it connects modern practices with traditional cultural practices. Positive experiences updates knowledge and awareness of what works through promising practices. There's opportunities for successful development, which raises community awareness about culturally appropriate parenting practices and infant well-being. And positive expectations, Native families and communities take the lead in infant safe sleep by tailoring recommendations to include cultural needs and practices. Next slide, please. Now we'll talk some strategy 2, which is emphasizing protective factors as key assets. Thank you. Among the most protective factors are safe, stable, nurturing relationships, which have been shown to have a buffering, protective effect on an infant's well-being and safety. So more protective factors equal positive outcomes, and more risk factors equal negative outcomes. Next slide, please. Now, these are the behaviors that we really want to invest in our communities. And I think these behaviors have been really well documented in helping create safe places for infant, or for safe infant sleep. Placing baby on their back for every sleep time, a firm and flat, safe sleep surface with a tight-fitting sheet, no soft bedding, including blankets, pillows, crib bumpers, and soft toys, and breastfeeding for at least 6 to 12 months, if at all possible. And then having the baby share a room with their parents. Next slide, please. And these are the risky behaviors that we really want to highlight. Placing baby to sleep in any other position other than their back for any sleep time, soft and loose bedding and other things in the baby's sleep area, sleeping with the baby, especially in adult beds with loose bedding, and on also on cushioned armchairs or on sofas and recliners. Sleeping with a baby when the adult is impaired, and exposing baby to adults who smoke, use alcohol, or use drugs. Next slide, please. So the first quote, multiple key informants talked about meeting people where they were. And the first quote here is reflective of this and speaks to the value of a risk reduction approach. My lessons learned are about the importance of a harm reduction approach. Not everyone will meet all the requirements that constitute a safe sleep environment. It is important to meet people where they are. Another expert similarly shared, you just have to invest the time with each family and help them understand as much as possible what the risks and benefits are of the different behaviors and environments, and meet them where they are at. Next slide, please. Well, now I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, Kristen. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lee. I'm Kristen Hellw. I've been following the chat. First of all, I just want to say it's great to see so many people from so many places across the country. I am joining you from up north. I'm at the Baskin from the Bristol Bay area of Alaska. I now live on Dena'ina land outside of snowy Anchorage, Alaska. So it's great to be here with all of you today. Next slide, please. So it's really important to remember to challenge negative emotions. We have to be open to stepping outside of our comfort zone and being open to the way things are, to new ideas, right, to new possibilities. This means entering people's space with tolerance and with compassion and the willingness to accept change without judgment. We sometimes call this practicing an open mind, open heart. And this means to be receptive to new ideas and to different points of view. Practicing mindfulness and learning to be accepting and grateful and kind will help to lead to an open heart. So the big thing is to listen to what people are saying, right? Different parents, different caregivers face different circumstances. So this is a really key piece of success. And when you better understand the people that you're talking with, you can then tailor your strategies to align with their specific circumstances and be more successful. Next slide, please. So here's the good news. Each of you can significantly impact and help reduce the risk of SIDS and other sleep-related infant deaths. Actually, we can all have a personal role in driving down these rates across the country and within our tribal communities by working together. But to be effective, we have to remember that fear, that guilt, that shame, those things don't work when we are communicating with and influencing the behaviors of parents and caregivers. With that said, we do need to be persistent, meaning that we must speak up even when that's uncomfortable, to make sure that parents and caregivers have good information. We must provide information repeatedly to make sure that parents and caregivers can hear it and to understand it. And finally, we have to be consistent in the messages that we deliver and then in modeling best practices so both parents and caregivers can see these best practices in action, right? It doesn't feel like just lecturing and just words. Next slide, please. So it's really important to adapt your solutions to the needs of the communities. And I already touched on this a little bit, but really cannot emphasize it enough. I think it's critical to make sure that we, in the back of our heads, keep in mind that above all, parents and caregivers, they want their babies to survive and thrive, right? They want the best things for their babies. And so our role as providers should be to support their efforts to be good parents and to be good caregivers. And this looks a little bit different from household to household or from situation to situation. So again, finding solutions that work for the families that you're in communication with is key. And of course, we have our recommendations, and we want to make sure that parents and caregivers are armed with those recommendations. But again, making sure that we're working with them to reduce risk really wherever they can. Okay, next slide, please. So patient-centered care also encompasses holistic care, and this was described by several of the experts that we spoke with as an essential approach to safe sleep promotion within Native communities. We really liked this quote and felt that it reflected the strength-based approach that we touched on earlier in the presentation. So making sure you can ask questions and have conversations without making people feel shame. Patient-centered care is defined as when an individual's specific health needs and desired health outcomes are the driving force behind all healthcare decisions and quality measurements. Patients are partners with their healthcare providers, and providers treat patients not only from a clinical perspective, but also from an emotional, a mental, a spiritual, a social, and a financial perspective. Next slide, please. So again, These things are really important in looking at ways to include all family members in the care. We know that our Alaska Native American Indian communities often share child rearing responsibilities, right, with different members of the family and extended family. So making sure that you're not just looking for opportunities to connect with the parents themselves, but looking for extending that network into, expanding that education into baby's network, right? So suggesting that relatives and other caregivers come in, finding ways to involve dad in the conversation, looking at information or photos or graphics for safe sleep practices, and then exploring relatives and other caregivers' willingness to make a commitment to try something new. And this comes up a lot, particularly as we work with elders. Okay, next slide, please. So the experts that we spoke with also noted the need to engage fathers and multi-generational caregivers. One person said, we really need to be creative in including the father. Everything is mom, mom, mom. And fathers need to understand that they have a responsibility too. Including that father perspective, I think, would be helpful. Another expert suggested, there are many people caring for an infant. It is really important that the education extend beyond the mom and the dad, bringing in grandma, grandpa, aunties, uncles, and the whole extended family. Next slide, please. So elder care is one common practice among all 500 nations. It's essential to include elders in education efforts, and especially when those elders are living in the home for the reasons that we talked about before. We know that elders often have a very influential role, right, to our Alaska Native and our American Indian families. So involving them is really important to achieving that family unity and that shared infant caretaking practice, right? The consistency in those practices. We also know that safe infant sleep recommendations have changed some over time. So advice or information that was given when grandparents were younger and raising their own children has changed. And so we want to make sure that those updates can be shared to encourage the adoption of the most recent guidelines. Next slide, please. One of the themes that was discovered through expert insights was how the gap in understanding between generations can create tremendous stress for young parents and can create issues for babies who are not always in a safe sleep environment. They had recommended that any kind of visuals or materials that we can use that really speak to elders and grandparents about what is safe sleep and why we know the things today that we did not know when they were raising their kids are needed. Next slide, please. So the next strategy we're going to speak to is integrating cultural images and symbols and teachings. And so we'll dive into that. Next slide, please. So the theme of culturally specific care was one of the key lessons that was shared with us from the experts that we interviewed. One person said, there are over 500 tribes in the US, and they all have things that are unique to them. It makes it challenging, but Native people want that connection, and people outside of Native community work and cultures may not understand at all how important that is. So this really highlights the importance of integrating and building on cultural teachings in safe sleep infant education, safe infant sleep education. Next slide, please. One participant noted the diversity across communities and individuals in connection to traditional and cultural practices, really highlighting the importance of tailoring efforts to the specific community or communities being served. This person said, it's really dependent on family dynamics and family situations. In some areas, we still have a lot of tribal people that are traditional. And then we have other families that didn't grow up with that teaching, don't have that teaching. It's going to be a wide range and is really dependent on the communities that you serve. Next slide, please. Multiple experts that we interviewed spoke about sharing story as a way to build relationship and to support and to share messages about safe infant sleep. This is one way to learn about the perspectives and the experiences of patients or clients, which can then help with tailoring support for risk reduction and safe infant sleep practices. And so these are a couple of the quotes that reflected this. This one says, sharing story is a great way to go, although sometimes that might mean sharing sad stories. Another person said, safe infant sleep might be a good talking circle topic to engage people in. Next slide, please. So we touched on this briefly as well, but we know that people generally respond better to materials to which they can relate. So in this case, considering culturally appropriate materials such as a medicine wheel could be really helpful. The medicine wheel addresses a key belief of our people that everything is connected, it's interrelated, it's interdependent, and it addresses the different facets of health, so physical health, mental health, emotional and spiritual layers of the information that's at hand. Next slide, please. So even though the US rate of SIDS is 2 to 4 times greater for American Indian and Alaska Native infants than it is for the general population of US infants, current approaches to infant mortality awareness often does not reach our Alaska Native American Indian parents and communities. So safe sleep messages must resonate with the Alaska Native and American Indian audiences to be effective. So to address this, your health communication must be respectful. It must appropriately integrate cultural concepts and practices into your safe sleep education efforts. Next slide, please. So this concept is really key to how Healthy Native Babies project came about. And its outreach, teaching, and materials are designed specifically to address Native audiences. We'll look at a couple quotes about that. Next slide, please. The experts that we spoke with underscored the need for using visuals, such as graphics, such as images, pictograms. These things, along with stories and videos, were mentioned frequently as more valuable than written materials, specifically for elders and to support a range of literacy levels. Videos were also noted as desirable for, quote, young people, regardless of their literacy rate. And we spoke with the experts about the Healthy Native Babies Project material specifically, and we heard some really great feedback. One person shared that Healthy Native Babies Project is presented using visuals that people in our region can relate to, and that's different from other safe sleep programs. Next slide, please. So the Healthy Native Babies project practices adapting safe sleep messages and messaging to education to the communities that we serve. Some examples of educational opportunities are outlined in this slide. So you can look at creative ways to incorporate safe sleep messages into things that are already happening within the communities, right? Welcoming ceremonies, naming ceremonies, blessing ways. We know a lot of communities that are doing cradleboard making classes, or just groups doing baby boards or cradle boards. And baby moccasin making classes. We've heard some fun stories for those. So go ahead and switch to the next slide. The next strategy is focused on bigger picture approaches to safe infant sleep education. And I'm going to hand this off to my colleague, Marie.
Hello, Mitaki, your relatives. My name's Marie Zephyr, and I'm the Great Plains area consultant for the Healthy Native Babies Project. I've had the honor of working with the excellent team for the last couple of years. And I am Oglala Lakota from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Next slide, please. So as mentioned throughout their presentation, there's really a couple different strategies for community level approaches that are found to work throughout American Indian and Alaska Native communities. One of these specifically is building buy-in, and through that buy-in, you could have relationship and trust building. American Indian and Alaska Native communities are typically very relational, and they're interconnected communities. A lot of times they're relatives, so really engaging them in a relationship and starting on a good foot will help people to gain the respect and really accept the messaging you're trying to share with them, especially regarding safe and fit sleep. Next slide, please. So another theme that was really highlighted was the support for educators and care providers. And this is specific to non-Native care providers. A lot of times, American Indian, Alaska Native communities do not have access to those health professionals as they're in shortage areas. However, providing cultural sensitivity training really helps to increase collaboration as well as provide that foundation for providers to really know the community in which they're serving. This also will help with sustainability, continuity of care, etc. Next slide, please. Another common theme was the timing for education. And in this recommendation, the key informant actually quoted that education should be done to OBs and give the moms time to think about safe infant sleep and how they're going to integrate that in their specific situation. Another key informant quoted that we could be utilizing individuals that work with the moms, our birth workers, and this could include midwives, doulas, and other people who work directly with them, so they could help educate for safe sleep infant practices as well. Next slide, please. Another theme that kept reoccurring is that of community outreach and marketing. This really stresses the importance of working with community partners. This is existing stakeholders. They're listed throughout the slide, as you can see, and also utilizing community events, as touched on earlier, using those cultural ones such as welcome ceremonies, classes, powwows, tribal summits, etc. All of those are great opportunities to share information about safe sleep practices. And they also give you the opportunity to really make that connection and develop relationships with members of the community. Next slide, please. It's important to remember that there's populations that are hard to reach, and these are typically the ones that fall through the cracks. It's typical in American Indian and Alaska Native populations that you can use these creative strategies to kind of address these hard to reach populations. And that includes going out to them, connecting with stakeholders in some of their existing like homeless meals, etc. And also implementing trauma-informed care for you in your organization just to understand the community at large. Next slide, please. Another theme that we saw throughout the expert insights was the protection of vulnerable groups. This aligns with many American Indian and Alaska Native groups because a lot of us strive for balance, especially when it comes to regards to the 4 quadrants of health, our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs. This was typically held at high priority for children and the person in general. However, are hard to reach are vulnerable populations such as elders and those young children were held at the highest esteem. It's important to keep that in mind as practitioners because they're also involved in the education of safe sleep practices. As mentioned earlier, a lot of times we co-parent in our families, and this could include not only elders, but also elder siblings or siblings in general. Next slide, please. Next, we're going to transition into implementing some safe sleep activities. And these are going to come directly from the facilitators packet that's available on our website for the Healthy Native Babies Project. We'll drop a link in the chat so you could visit it directly. But all of these activities have instructions on how to implement them. Next slide, please. Oh, and one more thing, you could also order some. There's some opportunities to get some of these materials sent directly to you if you go ahead and visit the link provided in the chat. Okay, the first activity we're going to talk about is the safe sleep environment activity. This is an example using a baby doll, a pack and play, and an assortment of physical objects like blanket, toys, and crib bumpers. And it really provides an opportunity to, 1, create those relations with the community members, and 2, to really demonstrate safe versus risky sleep practices. So you can use the baby doll and show them with a nice clear sleeping area versus one that may be risky with that maybe crowded with different materials such as the blankets, dolls, etc. Next slide, please. Here's our next activity, which focuses on a spiral-bound notebook. This is actually available as well. On one side of the page, a question is asked, such as what's the safest way for an infant to sleep? Then you encourage discussion amongst the group. And then after you flip to the opposite side where it has the answer. For that particular question, it's the safest way for an infant to sleep is to put your baby on their back on a flat, firm surface like a crib or bassinet. Do this every time that baby sleeps, including naps. And this really just increases the resources and knowledge of those that want to help to educate on safe sleep practices. Next slide, please. During a community health workshop, you can use one of our most popular activities, which is the risk reduction activity. This is actually just a continuum that involves photos, and it has its audiences consider how you can increase risk and what factors decrease risk. People are given the photos and they're encouraged to place them on the risk continuum based on what has the most risk reduction and the most increased risk as the behavior. Then they identify the photo chart according to whether it's decrease or increase. And this is also available in the facilitators package as well. Next slide, please. And the last activity we're going to talk about is the safe sleep activity that uses social media info cards. These are actually pre-established cards that can be used for various organizations to educate not only other organizations, providers, and practitioners, but community members as well on just increased awareness and safe sleep educational opportunities. These are available on NICHD's Flickr site, and we'll post that link in the chat as well. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and hand off to Geraldine, who's going to talk about the practical application of Healthy Native Baby Project strategies across Indian country. Thank you and have an excellent afternoon.
Hello, friends. I am Geraldine Simpkins from Northern Michigan, from the beautiful ancestral homelands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Nations of the Odawa, Ojibwa, and Potawatomi. And it looks like we have plenty of time. So I was wondering if we could pause for a minute and see if there are any burning questions from our audience for everything that's been presented so far. Anybody have anything they'd like to ask or add or comment on? Some of the questions I see in the chat have to do with where you can get this information. And Kendra has posted the facilitators packet link to the facilitators packet and some of the other information. So you can get that online. Also, she's posted the link to the social media cards and a few other items. Any comments or questions so far? All right, then, if you have questions, just continue to drop them in the chat box and we'll get to them at the end of this session. So we're going to wrap up our presentation by using the cultural practice of storytelling, our stories and your stories. Hopefully they'll illustrate how communities are using the practices and principles of keeping infants safe while they sleep and at all times. And after I share some stories, I'm going to ask you to share some stories with us. So next slide, please. Here's our first story from Indian country. Aisha is a community health worker, a grandmother, a tribal member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians in North Dakota. Because 2 infants recently died in her community while with childcare providers, Aisha visited several childcare providers to find out about their training. She learned that they had basic health and safety training, but they were not required to have extensive training in safe sleep for infants. Some were not familiar with the most up-to-date recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Aisha also learned from childcare providers that even though they put the babies to sleep on their backs, some parents insisted that their infants sleep best on their stomach or that would be the best place for them because of fear of choking, or because their grandmothers suggested that the belly was the best place to sleep. One child care provider said that local WIC nurses told new mothers that it was okay for them to put the babies on their side and put a positioner behind them if the baby was fussy. After hearing these stories, Aisha organized a meeting to teach childcare providers, parents, grandparents, and other community members about evidence-based safe sleep practices. The discussion focused on myths, and it also focused on how babies should sleep. One by one, Aisha addressed the fears of those who were present, and she used the Healthy Native Babies PowerPoint to illustrate her teachings. Because Aisha is a well-known elder who has worked in tribal health and in the clinic and in the community for over 30 years, she's a trusted authority. Aisha gave Healthy Native Baby project materials to each person. She gave a workbook to each healthcare provider and to each childcare provider. And afterward, people had a chance to socialize, and Aisha served a simple traditional meal of corn soup, squash, rice, and homemade blueberry pie. Sounds good, right? These are real stories from real people. Next slide, please. Here's our second story. Sam is a public health nurse in Montana and makes home visits to remote areas each week to visit pregnant and postpartum patients. She carries the Healthy Native Babies flip chart, which you saw in a previous slide, that you can order online, and she ordered it from the Healthy Native Babies Project. It is a simple teaching tool that fits easily into her nursing bag. At each home visit, Sam brings out the flip chart. On one side is a photo of a baby and a question such as, what should be in the baby's bed? Sam asks the mother and other infant caregivers in the home to give her an answer. Then she turns the page over and the answer is provided. The flip chart is simple, it's unintimidating, it's an easy to understand tool, and even the teenagers and the small kids often get in on the guessing of what the right answer is. Sam thinks it's never too early to teach everyone in the family about safe infant sleep practices. Next slide, thank you. So here's our third story. Naomi is a nurse in South Dakota who works in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Each summer, Naomi and other tribal members host a 2-week-long cradleboard making class for moms, dads, grandparents, and other community members. The material is free to participants, provided by small grants from the local health department and from regional tribal agencies. During each session, Naomi provides healthcare education on a different topic. Because many of Naomi's patients do not have the resources to buy infant cribs, she talks about safe sleep, alternative safe sleep spaces, and where people can put their babies if they don't have cribs. Naomi also discusses cradleboards as an example of safe infant sleep practices among American Indian Alaska Native peoples. Sometimes the grandmothers in the class tell stories about using cradleboards with their children. They usually begin by saying, "We Native people have always had ways of keeping our babies safe. We use cradleboards." During the last class, Native speaking elders hold a special ceremony. They bless the cradleboards with sage smoke, prayers, and songs. And afterwards, everyone enjoys a feast and adores the beautiful cradleboards that they have made. So Jen is a nurse midwife who works in the South Central Foundation in Alaska. Jen provides full maternity care and childbirth education. She's also a leading expert in alcohol use disorders and fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, or FASD. Jan mobilized her area to initiate an alcohol use disorders collaborative with tribal stakeholders taking the lead. Among other activities, twice a year, Jan hosts training sessions for service providers on a range of evidence-based practices, including alcohol screening and interventions, FASD screening and diagnosing, treatment, intervention, and wraparound services, health promotion initiatives, education strategies, and other facets of FASD, or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Jan is enthusiastic about teaching alcohol use to her mothers and fathers and grandparents, and how to combine sharing safe infant sleep spaces with care providers, especially how on the couch, if you sleep on the couch and you're using alcohol, that can lead to a dramatic increase in SIDS and other sleep-related causes of infant death. To make a significant difference in keeping American Indian and Alaska Native babies alive, Jan's goal is to help parents and other infant care providers change 2 essential behaviors. 1 is reduce alcohol use, and 2 is having the baby sleep separate but close in the same environment as the parents. Next slide, please. And here's our final story from Indian Country. Judy works for an urban Indian health center in Detroit, Michigan. She's a grandmother and she's a social worker. In the first week of each year, she and her colleagues host a baby celebration in which all the babies born the previous year are honored. She decorates the health center with photos of each baby. Because I'm from Michigan, I have been to several of these baby celebrations at the Detroit Center. Because the health center is in an old church in the heart of a longstanding neighborhood, the entire community is invited to the celebration. Parents, grandparents, service providers, neighbors, and local business owners. It's really quite the event. The babies are given gifts and paraded around the room for everyone to admire. Judy conducts an audience participation demonstration about how to keep infants safe while sleeping. She sets up 3 individual workstations around the room. The stations are a baby play yard, which has a baby doll, blankets, pillows, a sheepskin, a bottle, a teddy bear, and a pacifier in it. She asked the participants to work together to make the sleep environment safe for the baby. Then she provides them with the correct answers using the Healthy Native Babies brochures and other handouts. In this way, the safe sleep messages get out to the whole community. Peers have a chance to interact with one another. People get a chance to hear what other people in the community are thinking about when they talk about a safe infant sleep environment. Afterwards, everyone enjoys a huge potluck luncheon of traditional foods. And at the closing of the celebration, each baby is awarded a certificate that says, "I am a healthy Native baby." Next slide, please. Okay, it's your turn for stories now. Does anyone have a story about a strategy that works in your community? We'd love to hear it. Anybody?
And you are welcome to unmute so that you can share it if you would like via your voice, or if you want to put information into the chat, you're welcome to do that as well.
Does anybody host things like a baby celebration in their community, like the ones they do in Detroit? I've been to several of them in different parts of the country, and I'm wondering if any of you have done that.
It looks like Jared. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, hi, this is Devin George. I'm from Cribs for Kids in the eastern part of the country. And while it's not targeting this particular population, we do work with agencies and host community-wide baby showers. They're in targeted zip codes where we have higher SUID rates. And while there's a lot of activities there designed to celebrate baby, in there also is safe sleep education. And we transitioned those to virtual, which were really great because we had so much higher attendance because mamas didn't have to find transportation or babysitters for older kids and that kind of thing. So those continue to go on, and they're just, again, it's because it's a celebration and not, you know, finger wagging and make sure you're doing this.
Yep, exactly. And that's great that you've been able to continue them through the pandemic by doing them virtually. It's a great idea. Anybody else?
My name's Tequila. Excuse me. My name's Tequila, and I work for the Division of Indian Work in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we have the NICHD Doula Project. And NICHD means My Heart No Ojibwe. And so we have 22 Indigenous doulas. And when they meet with a family, they ask them if they have a safe place for baby to sleep. And if they don't, because we serve a lot of homeless people or, you know, people in treatment and stuff like that, if they don't, then we provide pack and plays for them, as well as car seats and breastfeeding supplies, postpartum healing supplies, lots of stuff. But safe sleep is one of our top priorities. And then this spring, we're gonna hold a cradle board making workshop to make 10 cradle boards.
Oh, thanks for sharing, Tequila. I'm a midwife by training, so I love doulas as well. I've worked with a lot of doulas, and so keep doing the good work you're doing in the community. Anybody else want to share a story?
And looks like, Geraldine, we had a couple people that added things into the chat. Melody mentioned that their Head Start does a community-wide baby shower. So that's a great example. Gina mentioned a baby shower for expectant mothers. And she's excited about this interactive safe sleep training activity.
Oh, and I also see Heather says we've gotten grandmothers and grandfathers involved by presenting safe sleep during congregate meals at our senior center. We also have booths at the annual health fair and family gathering. Great idea, involving the elders. And Holly said we've done crib demos and education about safe sleep at places like the Women's Expo and the Senior Expo. We do education with the grandmothers and caregivers to update them on the latest recommendations to keep babies safe while sleeping. We also provide safe sleep education throughout pregnancy through our prenatal care coordination programs. That's great. One of the team members asked, I wonder if anyone wants to be brave enough to share a challenge they've experienced with that the group could maybe support them with. Does anybody have a challenge that they'd love to bring to the table here for a discussion? Another question that was asked is, have you ever tried something that didn't really work in the community? All right, I think I'm going to pass the torch on to Kendra, and you can take over from here. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Geraldine, for sharing those stories. And thanks to all of our attendees for sharing what you've done. Those are great examples. And hopefully maybe we'll give some other attendees some great ideas that they can incorporate as well. Donna, next slide, please. Excellent. So now is our time for questions and comments. So this can be, you know, anything in general. We'd open it up. You're welcome to put it in the chat, or you can unmute and verbally ask the question or share comments. We really want this to, be as interactive as possible, and don't want you to leave without, asking a question that you might have, or want to post something to the group to get input on how others have handled that. So yeah, we'll open it up right now. And while you're thinking about that, we've talked about a few tools and resources that we have within the Healthy Native Babies Project. We dropped those into the chat box so that you have the link, and you can check out how to download those files, how you can order those as well. I did want to make mention, I think it was Marie shared the flip charts, and also the safe sleep environments and the activities that we've utilized in our training sessions. I checked our supply closet earlier today, and we do have some flip charts still here, and we also have a few dolls and little baby play yard sets. So I'm going to drop my email address into the chat, and if you are interested in receiving one or both of those, send me an email and we can get those sent out to you. So there is my email address, and I think we've got plenty of flip charts I can send out. We do have just a few remaining doll and play yard sets, so we'll do that on a first come, first serve basis. But yeah, we want to make sure that you all have any resources that we've shared, and we'll help share some of what we have left over from our training sessions. I had one question that came in I would love to pose to the crowd. We've talked a lot about elders within this presentation, and wondered about how you all have handled, say, grandmothers, for example, who don't maybe accept the current safe sleep guidelines. Maybe it's, well, we always did this with our babies and you're still here, might be a common phrase that we've heard. So I wonder about how you all have handled some of those difficult situations, and knowing that elders are very trusted and you want to be respectful, but how do you help families deal with maybe a grandmother who does not have the latest information on safe sleep?
I've found that the graphic is very powerful. The grandmothers, the graphic that shows where the spit up may go or not. The elders, or even that I've talked to, once I bring that up and show them, they really have a hard time arguing with that. So I think it's the case of a picture speaks 1,000 words. That's been my most powerful tool in that situation.
Great, thanks so much, Heather. That's a great point. It always so useful to see things, and actually I know I'm a very visual person, so it helps to actually visualize and see what it is someone's trying to explain to me. It makes a lot more sense. So thanks for sharing that. And I believe we might have mentioned that in webinar 1, but not in this particular webinar. So we will have that information, and there is some visuals that are in the Healthy Native Babies workbook. And also in some of the slide sets as well that we have as part of the facilitators packet. So you all could, if you're not familiar with what Heather was mentioning, that is something that is available in some of our materials and probably elsewhere as well. But thanks for sharing, Heather. Any other suggestions, ways that you all have handled a difficult situation and needing to explain, to grandmothers, what the current safe sleep guidelines are?
I think the main thing for me when in any cultural situation, because I am from a complete different culture where my baby sleep in bed with me, not because well, let me back up, because I'm a nurse and I've gone to school and have an educational background. But in my culture, my babies sleep in their mother's bed because we don't even have a concept of what a crib is, what a bassinet is. There's nothing like that. You don't understand that. We don't have that. But the first thing to work with elders in their community is, the main thing is respect them. You don't want to be talking at them, as previous presenter have mentioned. Ultimate respect, they are wiser than you are. You're not coming to them as, this is new generation, this is how we do things, this is what is safe to do things. You respect, you validate that you so much, appreciate the culture, and then work with them from that point in explaining to them what is changing, what research is finding out, and what is happening as far as SID, SUID is concerned, and what is surfacing in this modern era. That's how I've really worked with that.
Great, Becky. Good point. Always starting out with respect, I think, is so important in any topic that we're discussing, in Native communities and any other communities as well. Thank you for sharing. Any other strategies you found successful in working with elders and grandmothers, or just in general? Love to open it up if you've got any other thoughts, helpful hints that may help others in similar situations. I would love to open it up for any questions or comments that you have. Donna, go ahead and go on to the next slide. I'll give this plug while you're thinking to see if there's anything else that you'd like to bring up on this particular webinar. But we do have our final webinar in the series. It's happening on April 13th. Tools for addressing safe infant sleep in Native communities. We've got the website address here. We've also shared that in the chat as well. And that's where you will find our various resources and some of the tools that we talked about on today's webinar, so that you can access those. Anything else you'd like to add? We've got a few minutes here. Looks like we wrapped up a little early, so we'll give you some time back in your day, but we want to make sure that we've addressed any questions that you have, or that you've had a chance to share with others about some things that have been successful, or maybe not so successful, that you'd love some ideas on how best to handle. Great, thanks, Juanita. This is a topic that just came up yesterday during a home visit. So glad that you'll be armed with some additional information to share next time. If we don't have anything else, then we really appreciate you joining us. We appreciate all that you do for keeping babies safe, and appreciate all the work that you do out in the communities. Feel free, I did put my email address into the chat box. And so feel free to reach out, let us know if you would like flip charts or the play yards, baby dolls, or if you've got any other questions in general that you think of after the fact that you'd like information on, happy to help. So just feel free to reach out. I do see, let's check the chat one last time. Oh, Shira, thank you. Shira added in the literature review and put a link to that in the page as well. Thanks, Hannah. I've got your email address. Perfect. All right, we've got a few more email addresses in with some of the resources. So I'll get those in. I'll follow up with you to get your actual mailing address to send those to. So I'll give one more minute if anyone has any questions via audio. We're still open to take them. So I think we'll wrap it up here. Like I said, feel free to reach out via email. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thanks so much.
Thank you.